But back when I was 16 years old, I was like everybody else, right? Just got my license, totally excited to take on the world. However, my oldest sister at the time, she's 5 years older than me, she went to the eye doctor and she came home just crying. She was given the news that she looked like she had this eye condition that was degenerative, no cure. And the doctor wanted my mom, who was a single mom at the time, to bring in her other two daughters, so myself and the middle daughter and the youngest. And we all three went in with my mom and they studied all of our eyes. And again, just silence in the room. Walked out, many doctors in and out, lots of shuffling. Finally, the main doctor comes in and he says, gosh, I don't know how to tell you this, but you all three have retinitis pigmentosa, and you should prepare that you will most likely be blind by 40, and there's no cure, and it will get worse. And start making plans. I mean, almost like a death sentence, really. And I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, okay, I'm sure I'm only 16. There will be a cure, right? Well, I'm in my 40s now, and I'll tell you, there has never been a cure. And so over time, what happens with retinitis pigmentosa is it affects all aspects of your vision. It's night blindness. So for me, night is like, I mean, really dark, can't see anything. It's depth perception loss. So for me, there's no edges to anything. There's no edges to steps or to countertops or anything. And so it's all just one big blur. It affects color blindness. So although one time I do remember seeing that a stop sign is red with the white lettering, to me, everything has no color. It's just some versions of cream, gray, black, white, that sort of thing. And then overall, it's really grainy and blurry. And I will tell you that over time, it's gone from my ability to read paper to now it's just a blank piece of paper. There's nothing on it. Or I've been able to see faces, and now I can't see faces. Now it's either just a shadow and a dark silhouette, or in the right light, I might see a little bit of their eye socket, not necessarily the eye, or maybe it all blends in together. But you start to learn how to fill in what you don't see. And I'll talk more about that as we go along. But when I was given this news and the doctor just gave really bleak, sad options, my middle sister and we decided, well, we need to make sure that we go to college. Went to University of Oregon. I got 2 degrees. I mean, I feel for those who, can't see as textbooks. I mean, although technology has come a long way, I knew that it could get a lot harder. So got the degree. Then my sister and I went to Europe. We kind of backpacked it, as many do, and we hit 26 countries in 3 months. And I'm so glad I did. It was so amazing to actually be able to see the Colosseum, to see the Vatican. And I'll tell you, in recent years, about 4 years ago, I went back to Paris and got my nose right up to the Eiffel Tower. Couldn't see any of it. Couldn't, it was just all one big blah. So it was really about seizing the moment and seeing what I could see while I could. Now, it's in my personality to go, go, go and just soak up all that life has to offer. And my friends had always called me the fearless flyer, and I was up for anything. Well, a couple years back now, when my vision had changed a lot, I decided I would go wave running. Now, the true Nancy's like, let's go, right? Let's dig in and full speed ahead. And I wasn't driving, my friend was driving. But sure enough, we hit a wave where he went flying off the wave runner. It was just me. And I didn't know what to do. I was going full speed, cruising the water, didn't know what to do. I decided intuitively I would take a sharp left, but I didn't know if that meant I was going to hit another boat, I was going to run into the shore. I had no idea. But I decided to do a hard left, and my friend in the background is screaming, hit the gray button. But that would have been awesome if I could have seen what looked like. I couldn't see any of the buttons. They were all just a blur. So, I had myself hooked to the left. I felt a button, not sure if it was the gray one, and I hit it. And sure enough, the motor started to shut down. He actually swam over to me, my friend. He got back on the wave runner. And, I just felt this sigh of relief. But at the same time, I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to get scared in this moment. So let's keep wave running. And we did. We didn't take the waves as hard as we did before, but we definitely wanted to make sure we had a good time. And I think that one of the things I learned in life is that we're always going to get bad news. You can't live life without it, right? For me, it was blindness. For others, it may be a lost job. It may be another heartbreak in another way. But it's how, when you get that news, what do you do with it? Do you just play small and surrender and wave the white flag? Or do you say, you know what, I'm going to seize every moment and I'm going to give it my best and we'll see how that goes, right? Well, let's talk about dating when you're losing your eyesight, right? That is a trick. We live in such a visual world where people see each other across a room. It's like that romantic movie we all see, and they lock eyes and they fall in love and they go off into the sunset. Well, when you can't see, that becomes harder. And it's also hard sometimes to tell somebody about any condition or any thing in your life that feels personal and sad, and maybe you worry that it might be a flaw or a blemish or a reason for someone to say no. I mean, we've all been there, right? Well, for me, that was going blind. I remember being on a date with a guy I loved, and I was trying to tell him about my eyesight, and I just kept crying into my tiramisu. Like, it just didn't have the words then. I wasn't quite where I am now. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll just do day dates, right? Well, I was on a second date one time with this guy, and he didn't tell me where we were going. And it was during the day that we connected. We just spent most of the day at his house on his patio. And then the surprise was at night. You better believe I was kind of gulping because I hadn't told him about my vision loss yet at that point. So truly romantic. He took me on a gondola ride. For some of you that may not know, those are where you get in a boat and someone kind of rows and they sing to you. And we were going through these Venice canals, and it was just so, I mean, really epically romantic. But before that happened, when we were getting out of the car and the surprise was revealed, it was pitch dark. And I hadn't told him that I couldn't see at night. I told him I didn't see well, but we hadn't done a night thing yet. And so it was kind of one of those moments where he's handing me blankets, he's handing me things, he's carrying things, and he asks me to go down the ramp. And I say, no, 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 I'll let you go. And I thought, I got this. I can follow the moon shining on his dark hair. And I did that, and we went down the ramp. And at some point, though, he must have taken a right. I just found myself walking forward, thinking I was following his hair. But what I did is I walked right off the dock into the water, splash. The gondola ride guy is saying, well, no one's ever done this before. Now I'm thinking to myself, he's never met Nancy before, but I do have a fear of sharks. So I was in the water and I was like, "Help, get me out." I got out of the water. Again, a defining moment. In that moment, I could have said, you know what? I'm bummed, I'm wet, I'm cold, this was sweet, but no. I said, no, I'm going to rally. I've got wet hair, I'm super cold, a little embarrassed, my ego's broken, but let's do this, and we had a great time. Now, he and I did not go off into the sunset romantically. We dated a couple dates and that was it. But I thought to myself, okay, Nancy, you love dating, you love meeting people. Let's just be a little bit more strategic about it. So then I started thinking, well, I will just show up at restaurants before the guy, and I'll maybe have a conversation with the hostess. I'll maybe have a conversation with the server, let them know I can't see well. Maybe they can put the fork in one spot. Maybe they can put the drink in another spot. And it was just kind of one of those things where I thought I had it all figured out, but I didn't, because one of my dates took me to this beautiful French bistro, and I ordered actually a salmon dish, and I was so excited for it. I was so hungry. And when it came, I thought, okay, I know what's on my plate. I took my fork, I stabbed it into what I thought was the salmon. I took a bite. It wasn't the salmon. It was like a half a lemon. I literally ate this half a lemon. I could only imagine what the expression was on my face. I was super dying. And at the moment, I had to spit it out. So now I'm taking a napkin, spitting it out. And I still didn't want to tell this guy that I couldn't see it well because this was a dark French bistro. But I did. I finally, in that moment, had to explain myself why I ate a half a lemon. Didn't want him to think I was a lemon freak or something. And so as I shared with him about my vision loss and how I was just trying to, sort this all out, he actually had a heart condition of his own. And it was something that one could not see, just like someone couldn't see that I wasn't blind. You look at my face and they would think, oh, she sees fine. So we actually built camaraderie during that date. And it really allowed me to see that I could be open with people. I could be honest with folks. And from there, I continued the dating journey and I started to date with my friends, whether it was Match.com or an eHarmony, which was web-based, or whether I went on to any of those apps. I would give my friend my credentials, they would read the profiles, we would respond together. Or my friend, I would hand her my phone and she would do the swiping. In fact, today, my assistant does my swiping. And she knows me very well. And, I find it to be very fun because we're all on this romantic journey together. And I know when I find Mr. Right, there will be a lot of people cheering me on because we've been on this dating journey together. And so just know that as you go through your own challenges, like I have with vision loss, I think there's a lot more that we have in common collectively than our differences. But it's if we're willing to be honest, if we're willing to be vulnerable, if we're willing to, show that side of ourselves that is quirky, weird, nerdy, that what we might think is that flaw or blemish, sometimes that is our superpower, that is our strength. But you also have to be honest with yourself and figure out, okay, how can I, despite this limitation, still be myself and not lose that zest, that spirit? Well, for me, I realized I had to delegate, outsource, figure all that out. And when I gave up driving back in the day, we didn't have all these rideshare options we had now. It was really buses, walk, cabs, or drive. And so back in the day, I was in real estate. And when I gave up driving, I kind of had a near accident where I almost hurt somebody. And that was the last day that I drove. I remember putting the keys in my drawer and just kind of very sobbingly saying, well, that was fun. I didn't know how to be independent, didn't know what that was going to look like. And at the time, I was a top producing realtor in the Santa Monica area. So I started taking buses. I would take anywhere between 2 to 12 buses in a day. And the thing that is so, I guess, proud for me to say about that is it was what I had to do. And there were days that I would go to open houses and I would have like 6 sandwich board open house signs in my hand and I would have flags in my hand. And I'm pretty sure the bus goers were thinking, why is that realtor not driving her car? Why is she in the bus? And I would get there super early. I would walk the neighborhood, put out all my signs, do the open house, and then take another hour and a half to 2 hours, pick up all the signs, get back on the bus and go back. And I would do that for showings as well, taking the 2 to 12 buses in a day for showings. But again, when you're up against the wall, that back of yours, right? You just do what you have to do sometimes. You get creative. Well, I loved real estate, but at some point it became hard to see cracks in the foundation. And it was obviously really hard to, you know, advise my clients on things that really I felt as a realtor, they needed that person to see for them. So I retired and I started my company Living Full Out. And I'll tell you, that has been a journey all on its own. I want to take a moment, just a brief pause here though, because does anyone have any questions? Feel free to chime on in. Marcella, I see we do have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, someone asked, what made you feel like you couldn't be honest to begin with?
It's a great question. So there is this sadness whenever you're given news, and it could be a health condition, it could be going through a divorce or a separation, it could be anything. There's the emotions, the energies. Well, I should say emotions start with that means energy in motion. So when you have emotions, they're energy in motion. So when you have a period of time where someone's staring at you and you're having this moment where you can't quite find the words. You don't know how to tell them you can't see. You don't know how to tell them you're broke. You don't know how to tell them, you just went through a separation or divorce. It's gonna be different for everybody what that is so scary for them. But for me, losing my vision was scary. It was kind of one of those things where I didn't know if that was going to be something that would kind of turn them off. I didn't know if they would wonder, gosh, I wonder what level of care she's going to need in the future. I think our minds always go to crazy places, right? We think the worst. What I should have done that is thought the better. And I learned over time that actually the more honest I was with dates, actually it made us closer. It bonded us. It made, even if we weren't the most romantic fit, I'm actually friends with many of the guys I went on dates with today. So really, really great question. So anyone has any others, keep them coming. So jumping back into the whole story though, so when I segued out of real estate because I couldn't drive and it just became harder to really be the best realtor I wanted to be, I created Living Full Out, which is a motivational speaking coaching company. And I really saw so oftentimes in my real estate career, people who felt like they couldn't buy a home because they were single, or they couldn't buy a property because they were never going to make enough money. They were never going to qualify. I would see couples fight over hardwood floors, or I even sometimes scratch my head thinking, how are they a couple? They're so different. And I really wanted to create a platform where I could help people identify, what are their fears? What are their goals? How can we connect the dots between where you are today to where you want to be? How can we figure out, what time it might take to get there? What money you might need to make all that happen? And what people you might need to bring into your journey. So that has been our goal at Living Full Out, to help people rise and get to where they want to go. Now, being even a national radio host, which I am, and we're launching a TV show as well, that comes with trickiness too, because behind the scenes, what people don't know is in our studio, I can't see the time clock, or I can't see notes, with everybody's stories. There's a lot of prep that I do, a lot of memorizing someone's story before I ever interview them. And a lot of times they will say to me, Nancy, you know my life even better than I do. It's because I take a lot of time to study them. And I have a producer behind the scenes that gives me cues. We have this stuffed animal giraffe that lays across my lap at 1 minute to commercial, and we do flicks and we do taps and everything, just so I can hit that cue, because when you go to commercial, you can't step on the commercial. You got to be ready to go. Same with when I am doing a speech. I'll oftentimes get a 6-foot table, set it beside me, and I'll have little trinkets that will actually remind me about the stories I want to tell. Even today, I've got trinkets. Got this little Eiffel Tower here that reminded me early on to tell you about going to Europe. Now, I know all these things in my mind, but you're going to notice that a lot of speakers, they will depend on the slide behind them if they have a PowerPoint, or they will have index cards. But for me, everything's already got to be in here, which truly I feel allows me to be free and more present with you, because now I just really speak from the heart. And it's about figuring out for all of us, cracking that code. I figured out, how can I do my show, and how can I speak, and how can I not have to rely on note cards? I cracked the code, and I want you to as well. Now, again, part of cracking the code came from me asking for help, being vulnerable, being willing to seek out resources. I am a champion for nonprofits. I love them. In fact, our TV show that we're launching right now is Nonprofit MVP. You can go to nonprofitmvp.com to check that out. And it is a competition show all dedicated to nonprofits, because when I created that show, and I brought in very successful people as experts to help guide and lead it. As a recipient of nonprofits, people taught me white cane training or low vision aid, and different tools that I needed to be able to live independently, cook and get around. Without those nonprofits, where would I have been? And I know for many different health conditions, for homelessness, helping children, you name it, our hunger situation in our country. That is why I wanted to give back to them. Now, guide dogs for the blind. I want to mention them for a second, because one of the things about going from being someone who doesn't see well, and then you become a visually impaired person, and then you become a legally blind person, which is what I am, and then maybe even a blind person. There's phases to that. And so you have to lose a significant amount of vision to get a guide dog. So that's why you have to go through years and time of white cane training before you do that. But sure enough, eventually the eyes got to a point where it wasn't so good. Now, I'll tell you, the first guide dog school that I approached in trying to get a guide dog actually turned me down. Believe it or not, I was too social, I was too active, too busy. And they said a lot of their guide dogs were more for people that needed the support, companionship, really light mobility. And I really needed someone that I could run on the beach with, that I could, jump on a plane and go to a speaking engagement with. So Guide Dogs for the Blind gave me my dog Frost, and he is a 77-pound Labrador, hungry always. But he truly is my bodyguard. He is my guide. He is my eyes. And it is just so cool because literally we'll be walking along. He navigates sandwich boards and fire hydrants. And when he gets to a curb, he stops. He lets me tack my foot. He lets me know when it's time to go. He is such a blessing. And so if you have an opportunity to ever become a puppy raiser, Guide Dogs for the Blind always needs puppy raisers and people that volunteer to help prep a guide dog like Frost for someone like me. Because before they come to me, they got to go through a lot of training and learn a lot of those skills through the trainers, but also everyday people that allow them to be part of their home. And so truly one of the things that I have embraced is looking at life in a way where I don't need to rely on my sight. It's kind of a hoot, actually. I don't know why I say hoot, but I say it in a lighthearted way because I remember being 16 and I remember those words that I would be blind by 40. I remember the feeling of that death sentence. I remember feeling worried, could I still be that fearless flyer? I remember crying in my tiramisu, wondering, how was I going to date? I can't see someone across the room. How was I ever going to do apps? Those pictures are so small, but thankfully my friend stood beside me. All of that journey, even building, living full out, all of that, it led me to a place of becoming a lot more creative, a lot more innovative. And that's part of really, again, bringing people into your journey, being vulnerable. And again, I really want to welcome that anybody can reach out to me at Living Full Out, at connect@livingfullout.com, because I know these sometimes these fears and these questions we have, they come to us at the middle of the night. They come to us at times when we feel our saddest, our lowest. And Nancy, I'll always be your friend. And in fact, I see that Marcella, we have another question. What's cooking?
Yes, someone asked, what inspiration, if any, have you found in the representations in media or pop culture?
That's a great question. It's it's interesting. I feel like the blind community could be more represented. Um, I think a lot of times the people I meet get confused because when they meet me and they find out that I can't see, and I love going to like meetup groups, like there's this site called meetup.com, very social with that. And of course, I meet a lot of people out and about. And at first, especially if they don't recognize Frost, my guide dog, right away, a lot of times they might put up their hand and I don't see their hand, so I don't shake it. And they might think, wow, she's rude, or the minute thing is I might tell them, hi, nice to meet you, or hey, if we see each other again, say hi because I'm legally blind. I might say something like that. And they kind of put me in a bucket of, oh, poor girl. And then I'll tell them all the things I'm doing and it'll kind of blow them away. Well, when I watch TV and I look at the news and I've spent much of my life in media and I look at films, I think that it would be really helpful if we could show what blindness was more like. For example, those hybrid cars, right? Oh, it's so great, right? When you stop the car, there's no sound, the engine goes off. But that's actually kind of intimidating for us. I see them all the time that are cruising around, buzzing around, but then the minute they stop, the engine goes off. How do I know if they're there or not there? So sometimes for those of us that are walking around, it's hard because sometimes we just have to take that leap of faith, literally, and we don't know if a car is going to come and hit us. We might not hear it. There's many communities too that don't have the talking walk sounds. I live in a beach community, Huntington Beach, California, and there's just not a lot of that. If I press the button to walk, there's not chirping, there's no walk walk. Again, I have to really pay attention to Do I see movement of cars? Um, do I hear the cars? Do I think it's a good time to go? Is anyone around me that might be walking my same direction? Um, Now, I believe also that with the media, they could show a lot more technology that is available. I want to give a shout out to two applications I use. One called Be My Eyes. It is free. It's in the App Store. And I love Be My Eyes because I can call it up and I can connect with anyone around the world. They use the camera through my phone. And if I need them to read a recipe to me, or if I want to know if I'm at the right suite number, I can pull that out. They can easily tell me what they see. There's another app that I use all the time called Ira, AIRA. And it's beautiful because with Ira, although it's a paid app, it allows me to have someone pull up a GPS. They can even see the names of stores. They can even use different softwares to get into my computer. So if I'm having a day and Excel isn't behaving itself, I can call Ira. They can fix it for me. So the world of being legally blind, I think it is, and visually impaired, I should say as well. I think it isn't intimidating when it comes to the emotions behind it, the losing of the vision, but yet it is so inspiring when I think about nonprofits that are there for me, like Guide Dogs for the Blind, or applications like Be My Eyes and Ira. Then it makes it a whole lot less scary. And there are times believe it or not, I actually forget that I can't see. I was just talking to someone on a plane ride yesterday. I was coming back from filming nonprofit MVP in Boise, coming back to Huntington Beach, and the gal sitting next to me said, I had never sat next to a blind person before. I thought that was kind of odd, but at the same time, I was like, oh, wow, well, here I am, and she goes, I was wondering, I mean, aren't you scared like walking out there in the world, like not being able to see things? And I said, well, I can either live in fear or I can trust all my other senses. I can trust what I smell. I can trust what I hear. I can trust the tactical, what I'm feeling. I can trust my apps, right, that I just shared with you. I can and trust that I'm going to be safe just overall. I said, but also remember, I fill in the gaps. When I was sitting on that plane, I told her, I said, I bet this seat is dark in color. They usually are. I bet that tray is light in color. I can visualize the window with the shades that you go up and down. And I filled in for her what I thought the plane looked like and all the people in it. She goes, wow, you're really close. So for me, it isn't so much that I feel like I'm missing out. Even if I go to a restaurant, I can, feel the buzz of the people. I feel them eating and smiling and laughing and having a good time. Or if there's a band in the room, I see people, moving around. I envision them dancing, having fun. So for me, my mind is like my computer, and it just fills in what my eyes don't see. So truly, I dream in color, I see in color, even though I can't. It's what my mind chooses to see. So in life, if you choose to see fear, if you choose to see homelessness, if you choose to see lack, then that's what you will see. But if you choose to see change, if you choose to see inspiration, if you choose to see support and love, you will find it. But you have to choose those things. I chose a long time ago that, hey, doc, even if I do go blind by 40, I choose to be rich in life despite losing my vision. And so I really wish for all of you to just get out there and, in the spirit of living full out, just enjoy life and embrace all that you have. And when those worries and those fears come up, just know that it's going to be okay. I know we're down to our last bit. One last question, Marcella.
Yes, someone asked, is there a program you use to read Medium? If so, which one?
Real quick, because I know we're almost done. Yes, I use JAWS. So early when I was visually impaired, I used what was called Zoom Text, and now I use JAWS. And Zoom Text allows you to use a mouse, and it does color contrasting. It's more for when you're visually impaired but can still see something. And JAWS is when you can no longer see anything, and I navigate everything just from keystrokes. But that is what helps me navigate Medium. I want to thank everybody so much for letting me be with you here today. Feel free to go to livingfullout.com to reach out to us, or go to nonprofitmvp.com. And truly, it has been a pleasure. And remember, You don't need sight to have vision.